Christ is risen. Welcome again to our Real Health Clinic, where we are prescribing our special medicine. You're going to get it here for the bipolarism that has become epidemic in America. And this medicine is not a pharmaceutical. As we keep saying, it is a medicine called spirituality. And one of the active ingredients in our medicine here, which you can only get here at the Real Health Clinic, is that it works this way. It works by seeking insight, especially in particular to another person, or an opponent, an enemy. In this case, we're looking at Pope Leo and President Trump. They're kind of like, in a sense, enemies or at war, however you want to put it. And you gain insight so that you can make adjustments. You can know how to respond to the person in the best way, the most productive way. And it prevents you from doing what is symptomatic, very symptomatic of this bipolarism in our country, where you assign to someone something they never said. You presume to know what's in their mind, like a mind reader. You make an assumption because of something they said. Therefore, you make this great big assumption about everything else. Now, President Trump demonstrated that in his comments about Pope Leo. I'm bringing this up because it was just a great example. Because Pope Leo does not agree with the war in Iran and with a lot of that Trump is about, President Trump responded in his comments to the Pope by saying, the Pope wants Iran to have nuclear weapons. The Pope wants crime. Okay, and that's a classic example of hearing something someone said and then making a huge leap and sort of finishing the story about them, finishing like what you presume is in their mind and heart and so on. That if you say this, therefore it must be that. See, it's that all or nothing, either or. That's what we mean by bipolar. And this is very, very serious sickness. And that's one of the reasons we wear the helmet here, because it's a disease in which there's a lot of airborne bullets and drones flying relationally between countries, between a pope and a president. So I got to kind of keep our head down here and keep protected. Sort of like the mask we wore during COVID. Now, what we propose with our spirituality antidote is that you try to sift through what a person is about, what they're saying, try to especially get their message so you gain insight, so you can then respond more maturely. Not in the bipolar way, because that creates division. It's unfair. It's not fair. You know, we're supposed to be so sensitive today. Well, it's very insensitive to hear something someone says, one thing, and then make a sweeping conclusion about everything that they believe, everything they are, and they're on the other side, therefore we hate them. Do you understand? Now, in my bringing up the example of Trump, some of you are probably already being bipolar. See, he hates Trump. How can he be against Trump? I bet you that's how some of you feel. And that's why you have bipolarism, symptomatic. I did not make any sweeping generalization or judgment on President Trump. I simply said, what did I say? Did you listen? No, you didn't listen. That's the problem. That's symptomatic of the disease, a terrible disease, this bipolarism. I only pointed to a specific example because it was a good example of a symptom of bipolarism. I made no judgments whatsoever, pro or con, about President Trump. And I'm sure many of you are already launching into that. You see? What's the matter with him? How come he's not MAGA? Doesn't he see what Trump's trying to do? He's trying to fight evil. He's criticizing Trump. Wrong, wrong. You're sick with bipolarism. Oh, we tell it like it is here. That's why I got Southside Joe working for us. He tells it like it is. Don't jump to those sweeping conclusions. Very, very bad, unfair, insensitive, unjust. Look for insight. Sift through. Now, let's look at the Pope. The Pope has said that this war in Iran is not a just war. Now, every time the Pope says something doesn't mean it's an infallible statement, that it's absolutely correct or whatever. We do have, especially as Catholics, we do have to honor and respect and give a certain pride of place to what he says, because he is the Pope. He's our spiritual leader. He's actually the spiritual leader of the world, whether you like it or not. He is. But it doesn't mean everything he says is a dogmatic statement. So we can take it into consideration. Now, the thing you have to understand about just war is that the just war theory the church has, which the Pope is speaking out of, is like other church teachings or principles of the church regard to certain moral issues, such as bioethics and also capital punishment. There are basic principles in these three teachings that that the church has had for centuries, given to us by God, yes. However, the application of those principles can become more nuanced and complex depending on the world situation. And just war is a classic example. The Pope says this is not a just war. The just war, basically, to make it simple, is concerned about two things. Is it justified to go to war to attack another country? And secondly, if you are in the war, if you think it's justified, if the state thinks it's justified, how are you executing that war? Are you being compassionate and fair and just and so on? Those are the basic, there's many principles of just war theory, but those are the two big ones. Nowadays, because of nuclear war, nuclear capabilities, it makes the question of just war more complex. For example, you can't necessarily wait to be attacked by a nuclear weapon. Then your response, which would justify, in other words, you're defending a nation, that's part of the just war theory, you're defending yourself, so you're justified in defending yourself. However, defending yourself after you've already been hit with a nuclear bomb is kind of like too late. Again, see, take the principle, but apply it to the circumstances of today, and it makes it more nuanced. So we can't disagree with the Pope on whether this is a just war or not in terms of our involvement. Now, we have to be careful of what we're doing, how we're doing it. Because to wait for Iran to strike us with a nuclear weapon, which they basically promised to do at some point, especially to kill us, death to America, to wait for a nuclear weapon, as I said, is too late. So we have to be preemptive. So that might give cause to justify our involvement in the war in Iran. Again, I'm just saying these are the things you have to sift through so you understand the Pope, you understand the issue, and you don't jump right away to wrong conclusions. He's against the war, the Pope's against the war in Iran? Well, he's for nuclear bombs. No, just think about that. That's irrational. It's just plain stupid. Let's face it. Spirituality tells us to sift through things, hear the message, gain insight, We apply this to marriages too. Works like a charm. The couple's fighting, they think that one or the other is doing something unjustified. They're the bad guy. It's not how it works, not how you heal it. Our medicine, spirituality, not only for war, but for, in times of this bipolarism, but also to prevent bipolarism between a married couple. The married couple's marriage is healed, and it can be healed by gathering insight. In other words, by taking this medicine, spirituality, not bipolarism. Gain insight and make adjustments. Insight to one another and to ourselves. Insight and adjustment. More about our healing for bipolarism tomorrow.